In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you are tuned into the Charlie Rocket Show. And I am your host, Charlie Motherfrickin' Rockets, aka CEO Charlie. He's dead. Yes, the name of my upcoming book is called The Life and Death of CEO Charlie. Sometimes you have to kill off a portion of yourself in order to survive. For example, a tree has to kill itself in order to survive the winter, because if it tries to stay alive and the ice and the snow falls on it, the limbs will break off. So sometimes we have to die, or a part of us has to die in order for us to survive. And that's what I did with CEO Charlie. And I have an amazing book coming out, I believe in June. The book is written, 50,000 words. But that book is called The Life and Death of CEO Charlie. But CEO Charlie is not making an appearance in this episode today. Only Charlie Rocket. And Charlie Rocket is going to tell you a few stories about the law of attraction. Now, when I moved to LA, I changed my diet and I started eating some really, really high frequency foods, aka foods that are alive. Because if food is dead, it's got a low frequency, and if food is alive, it's got a high frequency. Well, I went vegan. I was actually right here in my current house that I live in Manhattan Beach. I used to Airbnb this place when I would visit LA, and I always said I would live here one day. And magically, when I got done with my Bike Across America tour, the guy who owns this place called me randomly. His name is Mitch. And I just landed back in LA. And he said, "Hey, Charlie, how you doing?" I said, "I'm doing good, man. I just got done biking across America. It's been, 3 months." I said, "How's that spot, man, you got down there in Manhattan Beach?" He said, "Well, I'm moving out today." And I said, "I'll take it." I used to rent this place, and I would tell my mom and I would tell my best friend when we would fly in town, this is going to be my home one day. And now it's my home. But I was sitting right here on this couch watching a documentary after I was diagnosed with my brain tumor about veganism. And I'm from the South. I'm from hip hop. Vegan, that's weird to us. But when I made that shift, I started eating high frequency foods, and I got rid of all of the negative energy in my life. And something crazy happened. I was able to attract things to the point to where I started getting scared. It was almost like after something would happen, I would call my friends and want to just have proof. Make sure somebody else knew about what happened so that I wouldn't think I'm crazy. And if more things happen, they would see wow, this is a pattern. And somebody explained to me one day, a guy came up to me, introduced through a friend of mine. He said, "You're very quantum." I was like, "What does that mean?" I was like, "I like that. That sounds exciting, being called quantum." And this guy is a quantum physicist. And he said, "You're able to attract things very powerfully." And I said, "Man, let me tell you, some crazy, crazy things have been happening lately. And I've been scared to tell people because I don't want to sound weird." And he said, "Let me teach you what you've been doing." And he taught me about quantum physics and how physics works and how it explains energy and how we're all connected, and how quantum physics actually explains the law of attraction, and how I was attracting all these crazy things into my life so easily and so fast, where in my previous life, I had to work super, super hard. And I always thought as CEO Charlie, as a businessman, 1 + 1 would equal 2. I do this and then I'll get this. But then all of a sudden, when I changed my frequency, and yes, I'm going to use words like frequency because that's energy. When I changed my energy, when I got rid of all the bad energy around me, when I got rid of my business, when I got rid of negative friends, when I got rid of dead food and started eating high energy food, not like an energy bar, because that's actually dead. It can like sit on the shelf for 4 years, but like actually living food that had high frequency, and you are what you eat. So I was eating high frequency. I became high frequency. So that means my radar reached really far, and I was very clear, and I was able to attract things. So let me tell you just a couple of things real quick. I'm sitting there talking to my friend George, and I said, George, I want to work with Oprah. He said, okay, that's ambitious. And I said, no, like I really, really, really want to work with Oprah. Like I actually think I can help her, with her health, but also I think I can make some amazing things for her network. And 2 minutes later, a lady walks by in this office space George works out of, and it's somebody he hasn't seen in years. Her name was Anna. George called Anna over. Anna, come over here. I want you to meet Charlie. And George said, tell her your story. This is before I had any videos, any of my story been told. It was just my story. And I started telling Anna the story, and she pulled out a sheet of paper. And I said, what are you writing down? She said, well, I'm about to meet with Oprah's producer of 25 years in a few minutes. And I looked at George. And I said, George, that was fast. Like, that's crazy. And guess who produced my entire Bike Across America tour? Guess who works with me on all my productions and givebacks? The lady who produced Oprah of 25 years. And I'm like, wow, how is stuff like this happening? How was I able to write down in my Quantum Possibilities notebook every single day that I want to be a Nike athlete? I want to be in a commercial with LeBron James and Serena Williams, and I'll post pictures online for y'all to see the proof. I have, like in front of me, I have a stack of notebooks from like the past year and a half. I even have all my quantum notebooks from when I was young, like, 12, 13 years old. And I would always write down what I want. And I was always able to get crazy things to happen. Like if I write down, I want to be in a commercial with LeBron and Serena. Well, guess what? I was in a commercial with LeBron and Serena, and I'm the most unrealistic. That's very unrealistic for somebody like me who's overweight and not a professional athlete. But that happened. I would always write down, Nike wants to work with me. And then it happened. And then I would write down, today is the day I found my videographer. And he walked through my front door. So when I met this quantum physicist and he noticed my energy and he noticed the way I talked, he said, you're very quantum. So what did he teach me? What have I learned? And how could I pass this knowledge on to everybody else to where we don't think it's weird, or we don't think it's hocus pocus, or we don't think it's woo-woo? But quantum physics can be broken down in a very simple way, and I believe I'm here to translate it. There was an experiment that the government did where they took a man and they swabbed his DNA. So he has cells, right? In a petri dish. And they put that man in a different part of the building. And they wanted him to watch a video that would either make him cry, make him laugh, make him excited. And they put an instrument on him to study the field of energy coming off of him. And they also had an instrument on the DNA, like the petri dish with the DNA in it, the cells. And they would study the energy coming off of those cells. And when he watched in a different part of the building a video that made him cry, his energy shifted in the same exact pattern that the cells shifted. Now that's very interesting. They're nowhere near each other. In traditional physics, we think we're separate. But in quantum physics, it states that we're all connected, and that an atomic particle, which is over here, an atomic particle, which is over there, those are not separate. They're actually connected. And this military experiment that was done proved that. The man's energy shifted, and his DNA in another room shifted. They did this experiment and they were able to track all the way up to 50 miles apart his DNA shifting without any lapse of time, no delay. It happens in real time. This is what quantum physics states. There was another experiment done where they took a test tube, put it in a vacuum to where there's nothing in it but light particles, so just photons. And those photons were measured so that they could see how they react, and they're completely random. That's what it came out to, completely random. So then they put human DNA in this test tube, studied how the photons, the light particles, reacted with the DNA in the test tube, and they formed a pattern. These light particles were attracted, keyword, attracted and aligned and synchronized with the human DNA. Now, they take the human DNA out of the test tube. What happens to those light particles? Those light particles remained in the same exact pattern as if the human DNA was still in it. So the human DNA is still communicating with the light particles even though they're not present in the test tube. All this is explained in a test called the double slit test, which is a very technical thing. It's actually simple, but it's technical and a little complicated, but I'll explain it in a very, very easy to understand way. An atomic particle is not a piece of matter. It is a wave. It is a source of energy. And if something is a wave, it can be in multiple places at one time. Let's take a rock, for example. A rock is in one place, but if you drop it into a pond, that wave that comes off of the rock is way over there on the left side of the pond and way over there on the right side of the pond. If that's what atomic particles are, if they're waves, then that means we're all connected. That means we can attract things. That means that quantum physics explains the law of attraction. Now, I want to tell you a couple stories of some things I've attracted. I've documented it all. These are real life things. And I don't want you to think I'm too crazy. But what I hope you get out of this is that you'll believe bigger. Because if you believe, and if you're able to tune your heart like a radio to what you want to listen to, or if you tune your heart like a television to what you want to see, you can see and hear what you want. Our hearts are extremely powerful. So they do a test of the energy that comes off of the brain. The brain has a field that reaches about 3 feet off of the brain. But the heart has a field that reaches at least 8 feet. The heart is an extremely powerful thing in our body. Now, have you ever heard somebody say, follow your mind? No, that sounds weird. But have you ever heard somebody say, follow your heart? Of course, that's instinctive. Nobody taught us to really say it. It's just something that we say. Well, our hearts have intelligence and our hearts have power. And our hearts are what can attract things into our life. When we tune it like a radio station, you're sending out an energy wave to something you are or can be connected to. Let me explain. I wrote down in my notebook I want to meet Rich Roll and I want to be on his podcast. Rich Roll is a huge vegan endurance athlete, has one of the biggest podcasts in the world, and this is last year. I haven't even told my story. Nobody in the world knows my story other than my friends. And I wrote down in my notebook, I did a draft board of who I wanted to draft in my life, and I put Rich Roll on there. A week later, a Mexican kid named Roberto DMs me on Instagram. Now, granted, I haven't been on Instagram in like 9 or 10 months, but something told me to log in and check my DMs. I took a 1-year break from Instagram. I checked my DMs, and there's this kid named Roberto. He says, man, I was connected to you through a friend. I work with these guys named Yes Theory, and man, I just want to meet you. I heard you're in Santa Monica. I said, yeah, man, come on over to the house. And I make sure I tell everybody what my dreams are and everything that I want. And I told Roberto, I said, Roberto, man, I really want to meet Rich Roll. And he said to me, oh, I crashed on Rich Roll's couch a year ago. And I'm thinking to myself, what? I just asked for Rich Roll to come into my life. Here's this Mexican kid named Roberto, completely random, sitting on my couch, on my patio, saying he crashed on Rich Roll's couch. He said, do you want me to introduce you to him? I said, absolutely. Well, my first podcast interview I ever did was with Rich Roll. It came right into my life. Let me see. I got some other crazy stories. This week in Sedona, I was before I got to Sedona, I'm in Las Vegas. And if you notice on my last podcast, I said, I just got done throwing up. I didn't feel sick at all. So I'm feeling good this morning, even though I was just throwing up about an hour ago. It was really weird because I don't feel sick, but something crazy was happening in my body. But I could not do this episode because this is literally going to be life-changing. Go back and listen to that podcast. I sound amazing. And I wasn't sick. I wasn't sick before I threw up, and I wasn't sick after I threw up, but I threw up. I was in the bathroom, and I felt my phone ringing on my hip. So I reached down for it, and I don't feel a thing. And I'm like, wow, that's weird. Like, I could have sworn I felt my phone ringing on my hip, like vibrating. So I go into the other room, the bedroom of the hotel room, and sure enough, my phone is ringing. How about that? It's Scott, my best friend. I pick up the phone. I'm like, what's up, bro? He said, man, I've been throwing up the past 48 hours. I've been so sick. And I said, you're not going to believe this. Bro, I think I could feel your energy. Like, Scott knows about all the crazy things that has come into my life, but I have a very strong connection with Scott. Like if quantum physics, now let's rewind. If quantum physics says an atomic particle can be in two places at one time, and we're energy and we're waves, that means somewhere out there we're all collided. I can feel Scott's energy, and I was throwing up, but I wasn't sick. I only threw up for 5 minutes. He was throwing up for 48 hours. I threw up for 5 minutes. I didn't throw up afterwards. It's been a week since. I haven't thrown up. But I felt his energy. So then I go to Sedona. My travel agent, amazing lady, said, Charlie, you got to go check out this place for this health retreat I think you should do for your audience, because we're looking at doing, health retreats to where we could all go on vacation together and learn and be healthy and reset and share our energy. And when I went to Sedona, she said, Charlie, I want to warn you. Sedona is a very high energy place. And if you're going through something, you're going to feel it. And I said, I'm fine. Like, don't worry about me. Well, I get to Sedona, and I felt like I was losing my freaking mind. I'm talking about like I'm texting my friends at nighttime. I'm like, I've got to get out of here. Like, my mind couldn't stop racing. My heart couldn't stop racing. I felt like I was in an insane asylum. And it was hard to explain because I'm at this like beautiful resort. I don't have any stress, but my mind was going crazy. Well, come to find out, 2 days. So I was at Sedona for 2 days. And then the next day I drove to Phoenix. And when I got to Phoenix, I got a phone call and said one of my close friends just had a nervous breakdown. And what's weird is the last time I was in Phoenix, when I was biking across America, that same exact friend had a nervous breakdown. And I remember I told his wife, I said, you know what? I'm not surprised. Because the past 2 days when I was in Sedona, I could feel this crazy, insane feeling. And this wasn't a nervous breakdown that is like taken lightly. This is like body is paralyzed, like completely debilitated, like in like really, really serious illness. And I felt it. I felt a war going on in my head, and yet there was nothing going on with me, but I could feel my friend's energy. And this just happened this past week. And when I get to Phoenix, Arizona, my friend has a breakdown. And the last time he had this breakdown was when I was in Phoenix. Is that a coincidence? Some might say yes, but if you ask me in my life, I've got way too many of these examples to show how we are connected. I've been able to attract things like the Nike commercial. I've been able to attract a videographer who's going to change my life, walked right through my front door, and we've been working ever since. I've been able to attract Oprah's producer. I've been able to attract Rich Roll. Not to mention, a couple other crazy things happened while I was in Sedona. I'm sitting down by the fireplace and I'm talking with my friend who manages a big YouTube channel. And I said, how was y'all's Black Friday merch sale numbers? And he said, man, it was amazing. And all of a sudden this like number popped up in my heart, like I felt it. I didn't think of it. I felt it. And I said, let me guess. And he said, guess what? I said, let me guess how much y'all sold on Black Friday. I said 180,000. He said, how the hell did you know? Who do you know? Who have you been talking to? I said, bro, I just felt the number. And he was like, there's no way. And I said, bro, like sometimes, like if you believe and understand in quantum physics, you'll know that there are no secrets. Like sometimes you can be in a room and you could feel when somebody's looking at you, and there's no proof because you're not looking at them, so you can't see them, but you can feel it. Sometimes we think when a sports team plays at home, it's called home field advantage, but in reality, that's all the people in the crowd sharing their energy. So these players are able to have more energy because energy is shared. That's why there's like, it's some crazy number. Like if you play at home, like it's like 70% chance of winning, but that's because energy is being shared. So you are able to play better. It's more than just confidence. Energy is transferable. Why was I able to know the knowledge of my friend? I don't know, but I was in Sedona, a very high energy place, very sensitive to energy. And if we're all connected, then technically I can know something. The number 180 just popped up in my head. Now I'm also in Sedona and I'm sitting at the bar, the little juice bar. I don't drink. Sitting at the bar, and this guy is beside me. And I say, hey, how you doing, man? He was an older gentleman, maybe in his 70s. And he said, well, what do you do? I said, well, that's kind of hard to explain. I'm just like an aspirational athlete. I biked across America this year. And he said, oh, I like biking too. I'm an avid cyclist. I said, oh, yeah, have you done any triathlons? He said, I have. I did Ironman. And I said, oh, where was it? He said, in New Zealand, Taupo. I said, get out of here, man. I did Ironman New Zealand Taupo as well. He said, really? I said, yeah, man. I said, where do you live? He said, I live in Santa Barbara. I said, oh, I live in Manhattan Beach. He said, oh, I used to live in Manhattan Beach. Really? Oh. I said, where'd you live? He said, 36th place. I said, get the fuck out of here. I live on 36th place. I mean, my mind is blown. Here I am in Sedona, sitting next to a man who did an Ironman halfway across the world, the same one I did, who lived on the same exact street as me. Now, there's only, 6 billion people in the world. The odds of this happening are probably in the trillions. And he asked me my name. I said, Charlie. He said, I just had a grandson that was born 2 days ago named Charlie. I was like, you know what, man? I'm not surprised. Things like this happen. It happens all the time. One last example, and this one doesn't have to do with me, is my friend. His name is Zach. He told his friend, man, I really want to be mentored by Scooter Braun, who's one of the most famous managers in the world, manages Justin Bieber and a whole bunch of huge acts. Scooter Braun may be the biggest manager in the world. And Zach, just a young guy from Canada, moved out here to LA to chase his dream, said, man, I want to be mentored by Scooter. He wrote it down. He actually saw me talking about quantum physics earlier in the year on my Instagram. And he wrote down, he said, let me try this hocus pocus stuff. And he wrote it down just like I do. And no kidding, 3 hours later, his roommate got an email from Scooter Braun. And he ran into the other room and told Zach. And he said, wow, bro, Scooter Braun just emailed me. He emailed him back and he said, can you do me a favor? Can you mentor my roommate, Zach? And Scooter Braun said, absolutely. And it only took 3 hours. These things happen all the time. I mean, we hear about it like with Jim Carrey, who uses the law of attraction. He wrote down famously like a $10 million check. And it came true. And you hear about, Drake, moving into his dream house that he had. We hear about these examples all the time, but for some reason we still think they're weird. That's what fascinates me about the quantum physics side of things. To where if we're all energy, then that means we're all waves. And if we're all waves, somewhere we're connected. Now, is there a way to strengthen the connection? I believe there is. When I started eating high-frequency foods, my antenna reached further and stronger. I mean, it was a better signal. It's like, let's take, for instance, a cell phone tower. Don't we hate a weak signal? We love a strong signal. We want full bars. Well, I'm always trying to look, how do I have full bars all the time? When I'm eating living foods, I have full bars. When I'm in a place of gratitude, I have full bars. When I get rid of my friends who are negative, they block that good energy, so I reach less. I reach less when I'm around negative people or have negative thoughts. When I changed my life completely, I was able to attract the craziest things into my life. I could feel energy. I could feel my friends. I could influence them. If I could feel their bad energy, can they feel my good energy? Can I change somebody's life through sending them positive energy? Can I tune my heart to attract me being a Nike athlete? The answer is yes. Now, there's going to be some people out there that say, well, Charlie, you can't just sit around and wish and write down in your notebook to attract things. And I'll say, you're right. But you know what work is for me? Work is sending out signals of energy to attract what I want, to where it's not just I'm going to work and get what I want because I worked. It's going to be I want something so big. Now, yes, me being a Nike athlete is so far-fetched. Me being in the Colin Kaepernick commercial with LeBron and Serena is so far-fetched. And I put in work by filming a fan-made Nike commercial. But that fan-made Nike commercial should not technically get me a Nike deal and get me in the biggest commercial of all time. I did not do that, but I I said it would happen, and I always use these words. It's already done. Time just hasn't caught up yet. And I always say it's going to be easy. And my goal is to dream big, but believe bigger. Because if I believe, that's down there in that heart area. Believing bigger sends out a signal. And if I tune it just like a radio station, say I want a hip hop station. I tune my radio to hip hop to a certain frequency. That 99.7, that's a frequency. So when we tune our heart to a frequency, we can then get what we want. On the radio, it's I want to get hip hop song. So once it tuned, it got a hip hop song. So when I wake up in the morning, I log in not to just Instagram and look at pictures on my Instagram. I log on to my quantum Instagram and I look in my head at the pictures of what I like. And I double tap in my mind, in my vision. I'm looking at the pictures I want to like. Because the more I believe, the more I write it down in my Quantum Possibilities notebook, the more I eat high frequency foods, the more I stay in a place of gratitude, the more I get rid of negative friends, the higher my frequency is. An atomic particle is not a piece of matter. It is a wave. We are all made of atomic particles, so I'm not over here and you're not over there. All the tests of all the quantum physicists and scientists show that this atomic particle on one side of the earth can affect an atomic particle on another side of the earth. There's these satellites that are set up on the North and South Pole that study the energy field of the earth. Now, it's like it's kind of like an earthquake rating. They can see the energy of the earth, and on a certain particular day, the energy spiked off the charts. That day was September 11th. Within 15 minutes of the first plane hitting the tower, these satellites that track the energy coming off of the Earth's field spiked to levels it's never spiked before. The energy on the Earth was felt. It also happens in earthquakes. How do animals know that there's an earthquake and they start running long before us humans? Well, those animals feel energy. They're tuned into the earth way more than we are because we have distractions. They don't have distractions. But when there's an earthquake, an animal knows and it starts running. And then the humans, an hour later or 30 minutes later, oh, we just felt the earthquake. The animals felt it long before there was an earthquake. So quantum physics explains all of the law of attraction. If you want something, you're already connected to it. You just have to believe enough and tune your heart to what you want, just like a radio. My goal is to strengthen my signal every day and to believe bigger, because the bigger I believe in this, the more I'm able to attract. I want to believe bigger and I want to dream bigger. And I want to share this information with you guys because we all want to prosper. We all want to attract things into our lives that are positive. This is how I've done it. I experience it so often. I want to experience it more. So if you experience things like this, I actually want to keep a database. And I want to normalize this. I want to normalize these experiences so other people won't think it's hocus pocus. Quantum physicists, they understand it. But sometimes they're so complex that we don't understand them. So I'm here to translate it. I hope I did a good job. I hope you keep your Quantum Possibilities notebook. And please email me, ceocharlie@gmail.com. Any crazy quantum law of attraction experience that you've witnessed or experienced in your life. And I want us to talk about these things more, because if I can help you believe bigger and believe that this is possible, you're going to get more into your life as well. And that was the Charlie Rocket Show. Please tune in. I'm going to be dropping episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. Please rate and subscribe. The reason why that's important is because we want to be discovered on this show. So we want to be at the top of the charts. How do the iTunes charts work? Well, if people subscribe, rate, and review, it adds up to the algorithm more than if people just listen. So if you rate it, subscribe it, and review it, it tells iTunes that, wow, we need to put this higher on the top charts. So please do that for me. Please share with a friend. Please spread the message about quantum physics and the law of attraction, because this is what we're all made of. Energy. I'm sharing it with you. I want you to share it with somebody else. I'll catch y'all next time.